Isn't it the nicest feeling when you can say, oh, thanks, I made it. Hello everyone and welcome to this new video. As is typical here on the channel, when the new year starts, I do a little review or roundup or performance review of what happened in 2023 in this case, the previous year. This isn't necessary, but I find that if you're like me and you have a poor memory, you might end up finishing the year and thinking, oh my god, I did nothing this year. I can't think of a single thing I'm proud of, or like feeling really down about the amount of stuff you did make. I'm like that. If you asked me, I wouldn't be able to name you a thing I made this year really, or maybe I'd be able to name you one or two things when I actually made a lot more. So what I really like about this, like making myself sit down and talk to you about the things that I made, is that I can identify what worked, what didn't, what more I'd like to make of in this coming year, and just really give myself a little bit of a pat on the back, because I don't do that regularly, so it's nice to do that sometimes. So the way I usually do this is that I have a little spreadsheet where I've put down every single thing that I made, as much as I can remember. The only way I can ever remember is by going back through my camera rolls. So if I don't have a finished photo of it, I probably won't remember I made it. So I think we'll just jump straight into it, because I actually made quite a lot of stuff in this year. I thought this spreadsheet was going to be remarkably empty, and then I started adding more things, and it turns out I made 23 projects in 2023. Which honestly is just so pleasing. I was tallying them up and I was up to 22 and I was like, oh no, if only I'd made one more, it'd be perfect. And then I was going back through my camera scroll and I found something that I made in like 3 hours one morning and completely forgot I did. So yay! And yeah, let's get to it. Let's get started. So I only finished one project in January, and also, by the way I record these in the spreadsheet is that I record them on the month that I finished them, because often these projects take a really long time. So in January I finished one project, which was my Edwardian 3-layer capelet. It's super cute. I do like this one. It's not a love, so I didn't categorize it as something I loved because it's so heavy, and I think that's what really puts me off wearing it. I really built up the layers in between, and I ended up lining it with this really thick wool, like almost like a felted wool, but it was very thick. And I thought, oh great, it'll be super nice and warm. But I also made this 3-layer, it's got 3 layers, very heavy. And so I haven't really worn it. I think it goes really nicely with stuff in my wardrobe that's like Edwardian history bounding or like Victorian bits. But to be honest, I haven't really worn it since those first few photos. It's also a bit flashier. There's not a lot of trim on it or something, but I find that the design of it calls attention. And I'm still getting used to wearing things I like, no matter how many people might look at it. So hopefully I will wear it more, but I think it works really nicely with Edwardian projects, so it has a place in my wardrobe for now. And the fabric for this was entirely from my stash, which I really liked. And yeah, I think it was a successful project altogether. And then I thought I hadn't finished anything in February, but turns out I did. I finished my 1905 travel suit, and this was actually a very long-term whip, because I think I started it, I was still in Glasgow when I started it, so I think I started in the beginning of 2022, and then when winter wrapped up and spring came, I couldn't really be bothered to work on it because I had to make this massive coat. But this past winter, well no, the previous winter, I actually did sit down and finish it, and I'm actually really, really proud of how it looks, but I only really finished it at the end of February, and then I had a bunch of things happening and I didn't have time to go and shoot it, like the finished costume altogether, and so I ended up not having any finished photos of it. But I will soon, I hope. I just wanted like a really nice, like, you know, that little bit between winter and spring where everything is like still a little frosty. I think the suit would look beautiful in something like that. Or maybe even in the spring. So I just need to do that final photo shoot, and then I have one video about that as well in the works for you guys, because it was such a beautiful project, and it was a really massive project for me, and I really wanted to share how I did that with you because I was so intimidated by it. So it will be coming. I don't have any worn photos of it. This was a historical make. All the fabric was bought new for this particular project, even though I bought it all in like 2021/2022. So technically it's from the stash, but it was bought for this project in particular, so I'm not counting it as from the stash. And the main fiber is cotton, because it's actually made of this polished cotton, like a cotton sateen. that I got, and I think that's one of the things that made this project manageable, was that I wouldn't be able to afford it because it took so much fabric to do it out of something like a wool suiting that would be more appropriate or something. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. That was a great success, and I can't wait to share the rest of it with you guys here on YouTube. Then in April, I finished a little knitted vest. So I think this is the thing that really took off in 2023, is that I did a lot more crochet / knitting things. I learned to knit, I think in 2021 or 2022, something like that. And then I really learned to crochet in 2023. I kind of knew how to do it, but I didn't really know how to make garments out of it. So I think this was the year of the knitting and the crochet, because I actually finished quite a lot of things. And I found it really pleasing to have like a smaller project in the back that I can just work on when I'm tired of being at the sewing machine, when my back is like hurting from being at the sewing machine, and I can just go to the sofa and do my little knitting and crochet. So the first thing I made was this knitted hobbit vest. This was my first knitted garment ever. It's made entirely of moss stitch, and it's made of a wool blend green yarn with some mohair. So it's like 2 strands of yarn done together. It was a really great experience. I learned a lot, but I learned about how tightly I knit, and I learned about how tightly I cast off, because some of the armholes and things are still a little bit skewed. And nothing that I've made has been properly blocked, because I've really struggled with that. But my friend has recently gotten some blocking mats, so I can actually go and block all my things properly. But yeah, I really love it. It's super comfortable. It's super warm. I think it's beautiful. And I love it. I love layering it with skirts and like little flowy shirts. Like, it has a real hobbit vibe to it. So I'm really happy with it. It was the first thing I knitted, and I have no reasons to complain. In April, I also made something on impulse. I sometimes have these little whim projects, and I'm really glad I did, because I enjoyed it. And I found that something that really changed in 2023 is that I've made a lot of smaller on whim projects rather than big projects that I have to plan for a while. And those I found really rewarding, because the time span between thinking of them and making them is so much shorter. You can get the dopamine hit really quickly. So I made this blue kirtle. It was made out of stash fabric. I still think it's some poly blend of something. I don't know. It was a fabric that a friend gave me from a clear out somewhere. But I made this cute little kirtle. It took like no time at all. I hand sewed a lot of it, and I wore it to this event at a local historic house where they were having a Tudor inspired May celebration, where I went with some friends, and it was such a great day, and I wore it, and it was really comfortable, but it was also beautiful. It had like a nice swish, and I'm a lover of the kirtle. Like, I can never have enough kirtles in my wardrobe. I just want to wear them for everything, because I think they're so comfortable and beautiful and flattering and endless. I want one in every color, basically, is what I'm saying. This was a great project, and again, those stash busting projects I find really rewarding, because I didn't have to buy anything else for it. I could just get it done. So there's a video about making that project on here if you want. It was a really quick, easy project to make. I highly recommend it if you're new to sewing and you wanted to get into some historical stuff, but you didn't want to do like the really elaborate Victorian or Edwardian things. The kirtle is a really nice introduction to a lot of historical techniques, and a really rewarding garment for the effort that goes into it, I think. Then in May, I finished my first crochet jumper. I call it the sunset jumper because the yarn is one of those color changing yarns, and to me it just had all the colors of a sunset. So in my head this is deemed the sunset jumper. And this is the one that was made after my friend Elena's pattern. It's just rectangles, but she taught me how to do it. I couldn't repeat it without her. But yeah, I really love it. I think it's so cute because it's like a little cropped shirt. It's warm, it's comfy, and I love the colors on it. I find it's really original, and I got really nice compliments when I wear it out. Like, someone was just like, oh, a really nice jumper, and I said, oh, thanks, I made it. Isn't it the nicest feeling when you can say, oh, thanks, I made it? So yeah, I really love this project. Maybe if people are interested, I had a few comments on my TikTok and Instagram about it, so if people are interested, I can always ask Elena to teach us all how to make it. I can make another one and she can teach us all collectively how to make it, because it was a really easy project, because again, it's my first crochet jumper, so it wasn't like you didn't have to do any maths. It was basically rectangles with some decreases for the V-neck line, and that was basically it. So, but surprisingly, that wasn't the biggest thing that happened in May, to be honest. In May, I finished my 4-year-long project of the Breathe dress from Ever After. If you haven't seen Ever After, it's one of those like 90s fantasy rom-coms for teenagers kind of vibe. It's a retelling of a Cinderella story with Drew Barrymore. And I remember watching it when I was younger, and I've always had this, like, you know, they make us feel this way, but I always love the transformation dresses, you know, when there's a big climax point in the story and the main character gets a new dress. That really hits the spot for me. And this is one of the dresses that really stuck out in my head, and especially as I got older and I got into historical sewing, you can see that it's got those Renaissance, you know, like Venetian, Italy kind of vibes. And I really wanted to make it 4 years ago. So when I started it 4 years, I thought it'd be a nice, really quick project, 3-month project that I could make to go to this Comic-Con in London. And it did go to London Comic-Con. It just went 4 years later, precisely to the one, like they happen in May and October, and I went to the one in May 4 years later. It was a big project, but I'm still so incredibly proud. There's of course things I would change about it, because no project, I think, in my opinion, is ever perfect. But overall, I'm so happy with it. I think it's such a huge enterprise, and I think it's going to come back out for every single event that I can bring it to, because otherwise I'll wear it to nothing. And I think it needs to be out. It needs to be in the sunshine. It needs to be, I really wanted to see it under like a candle glow, like, you know, candlelight. I think it would be beautiful, or like night lights I think would be really good. And if you want to see more photos, there's loads of them over on my Patreon, there's loads of them over on my Instagram, and I'm also going to be adding, I've managed to scan all of the pattern pieces that I have for this dress, so they're all going to be on Patreon very soon as well. So after such a big project in June, I kind of wanted to step back a little bit. So for the next couple of months, I had smaller projects planned. In June, all I did was I knitted this cute little vest in like this copper wool. I really love it. It's super comfy, and I think it'll be really nice to layer into outfits as well. This was made from an online pattern as well, which I can link down below. And it came together surprisingly easy, because I learned my lesson from the moss stitch, and this is just then stockinette all the way across, so that it, you know, takes less time. I really enjoy the effect of the moss stitch, but I can't do it. So it was a cute little project to like sort of give myself some time to get back into thinking about sewing things. And then I decided to get started on a project that I thought about earlier in the year, in April, when I was in Edinburgh temporarily. I went to this fabric shop, not for myself, for my mum. She wanted something, but I saw these 2 beautiful fabrics that would go together perfectly, so I bought them, and then I had to make something with them. So I bought this linen cotton cream blend that was just beautiful, and I thought it would make a great apron to layer onto outfits. So I really wanted to work on having like more movable pieces that I could work with different history bounding, history inspired outfits. So I made this really beautiful apron. I love it. I think it came together really quickly. There's a video about it here on the channel if you're interested. It has real 1860s vibes, Little Women, all that kind of stuff. And then in July, I worked on the 1860s ensemble to go with it. So the other fabric I brought at the same time is this cotton plaid in green that I really wanted to make into sort of a versatile 1860s bits. Originally, I thought it was going to be a dress, but I decided to make it into a blouse and a skirt so that I could wear it with other things. I'm really happy with these pieces. I think my work on them is great. I had some issues with the waistbands and the way things looked. I'm happy with them, but I haven't worn them, and I think that's a really good indication of whether I'm intrinsically happy with them. I think there might be some alterations I might do to them. I think the skirt is better now that I fixed the waistband, but I think the blouse doesn't really work, so I might gather or fit some of the front, because I don't think it lays very nicely when it's tucked into skirts, and I think that'll be a really nice easy way to change it so that it looks better. And then in July I was going up to go on holiday, and I saw these crochet projects on TikTok. The amount of amazing craft stuff out there on social media is insane, but I saw them, and so I made them. The first one is this white crochet top and this really cool, I can't remember what the stitch was called. It was like a shell or a conch stitch or something like that. But I thought the design of it was pretty, and I thought it would work perfectly for like the summer into going on holiday. So I really love it. I think it worked out great. I wore it loads while I was on holiday, because you can layer it on top of swimsuits, you can go out at night in it. And yeah, I thought it was a great project. It came together very quickly. I'm really happy with that one. And then the other one is this cute little black crochet top that like laces up at the back with a bunch of like yarn. This is a little bit of a racier one, but I really like it for the holiday as well. I went out with it at night. It's very different to everything else I make on this channel, so I didn't feature it a lot, but I really like it. I thought it was great and it made me feel great, so Two great makes, and they were all so quickly to make as well. And then in the spirit of finishing whips, I managed to finish a whip that's been hanging around the sewing room for actual years. I brought it with me from Scotland. I don't know why it's taking me so long to do this. I forgot about it. It was in the back. I wasn't excited about it. But I had this idea a while ago, and I made a little Instagram reel and TikTok about how you could do this yourself if you wanted. But I was doing some 18th century things or something, and I thought a little lace fichu would be really nice to layer onto outfits because it really adds that dimension of accessories. It brings you back into the history. I feel like it really pulls an outfit together. But I didn't want to spend a lot on really expensive lace. And I found on Etsy, this Nottingham lace factory was shutting down, and they had these little embroidered napkins or like little lace squares that they had, and one lace collar. So I bought them really cheaply, and then what I did was I cut up the lace napkins to layer on as lace to this fichu. I think it really worked. It was super economical, and I'm really happy with it. So I think when I have more like 18th century or even Regency things, it will layer onto outfits really nicely. So I'm very happy with it. It was a very quick project, and if you want to do something similar, do check out that reel. It just goes a little bit more in depth about how I placed the things and stuff. And then after I finished the 1860s outfit back in July, in September I wasn't completely happy with it because I wasn't wearing it. So I already started the process of thinking about how I could fix it. And having had a look at more 1860s fashion plates and photos and things, I rediscovered the Swiss waist. I'd never made a Swiss waist. There's a video about it here on YouTube if you're interested. But a Swiss waist is basically like a decorative belt. I wouldn't call it a corset because it doesn't have the same kind of patterning and structure as corsets, but it's a solid belt with some boning in it that usually laces up either at the front or the back or both, and it just really accentuates the waist. This would have normally been worn over a corset, but it's a really nice handy little trick if you're wearing more historical outfits the day to day but you don't actually want to wear a full corset. This really, number one, it covers any messy waistbands you may have, and number two, it also provides you more of that hourglass silhouette without needing the full structure of a corset. It was a great project. It came together in like a day. It was super simple. I used the historical pattern that was freely online and adapted it to myself. That's also on Patreon. And yeah, it was a great project. I'm really happy with it, and I think I can use it with loads of different outfits. And then after the Breathe dress was kind of wrapped up, I had no bigger project and I didn't really know what else to do. I was a bit lost. So usually what I do is I make a poll on Patreon, and they very thankfully and gratefully voted for some 19th century corset covers and petticoats. So I really needed to develop my undergarment a bit more, and I wanted some more versatile styles. I wanted something that I could wear with the shorter skirts that I have nowadays because I don't really do floor length skirts for history bounding. And I wanted some corset covers that I could use in the summer as well for some like Victorian undressed looks. And I drafted these two corset covers, I made a petticoat, and I think they worked out really great. Those patterns are going to be on Patreon in the next few months as well. But they came out really great. They're super comfortable. They're exactly what I wanted. They're just made of one layer of lightweight linen. And yeah, I'm really happy with those. They were quick projects. They were like the stakes were low, you know, like if you mess up a little bit, you can always cover it in lace. So I really enjoyed those projects. They were completely from the stash, except for I think a couple of lace bits that I got for the petticoat. And then in September, I also finished my next knitting make. So whenever I finished knitting / crochet something, I immediately cast on something else, just so I can have something in the back to do if I'm watching TV or whatever. So I immediately cast on for this red cardigan that has like a 1940s vibe to it. But I used quite chunky wool, so I think you're meant to make this in a lighter weight yarn so that it looks a little bit more like those, you know, 20th century or even 19th century knitted cardigans. But I'm still really happy with it. I think the shape is incredibly flattering. The fact that I made it in a bigger yarn meant it actually went by pretty quickly. It's super warm because it's made of 100% wool that I got on sale like 10 months before. And I'm really happy with it. I wear it all the time this winter. I love it. Hasn't been blocked yet, so don't judge anything for that. And then in October, I had sort of a background project, which was I bought a dress to be a bridesmaid, actually the maid of honor, at my friend's wedding, but I wasn't altogether happy with it. So I wasn't going to add it on here because technically I did buy it, but I changed so much of it that I am going to mention it. So I completely relined the whole dress. I bought a really lightweight pale blue because the dress was a little bit too dark for the colour scheme of the wedding. So I relined it so that it brightened up the dress a little bit. And then the other thing I did was that I beaded the whole thing. I love those like couture beaded dresses, and I love the action of beading. It's something that really relaxes me and I really love it. So I spent quite a few months beading all of this dress, and even some of it while I was in Mexico 3 days before the wedding. I'm really happy with it. I think it turned out really beautifully. I don't have a lot of photos of it. I think I have one photo from the wedding that I can put up here. But I worked really hard on it, and it has so many hours of beading on it that I think it deserves to be on this list. So that was October. And then in November, I was away for a lot of it because I went to the wedding. But I did manage to squeeze in an 1860s corset, which I've wanted to do for ages, because there's this beautiful blue corset from the V&A that just lives in my head at all times, rent-free, constantly. There's just something about it that really catches me. I love it. And so earlier in the year, I actually decided to just bite the bullet. I bought some blue silk and I decided to make it. And I used a red threaded 1860s pattern that I altered because the one from the V&A has more boning. And it's not an exact replica or a copy or whatever, but I think it turned out great. It's a really comfortable corset for me. And because it's such a short corset, so all the boning stops at your waist, it really leaves your hips free. And because obviously the 1860s doesn't have, the hips aren't fitted in skirts. That's why. And so I found it was a great corset style for me. I really love it. I'm very happy with it. Absolutely will be wearing it. And I finished one more thing in November, which actually I'll just grab to show you now because it doesn't belong in the garment bit. There was like this massive cold spell here in November, and I was walking to the archives one day and I was so cold, and I wish I had every inch of me was covered except like my head, because I don't really have a lot of hats, and my ears were freezing because I had in-ear headphones. And then I remembered, actually you have over the head headphones, they can become earmuffs. And so I made like little crochet covers for my headphones. This was like my first attempt, so like it's a bit messy, but I really like them. I think they're so cute, and I'm definitely going to make more of these to cover the headphones because number one, it protects the headphones, and number two, it adds a little bit of warmth. So super cute, super easy project, and crochet is amazing. You can do anything with crochet. I'm absolutely sold. That was it for November, and then in December, I had quite a productive December. I managed to finish my Morris quilt, which is here on the channel. I'll insert a photo of it because it's too big to show you. It's like a full bed quilt. I'm so happy to have finished that whip. Like finishing whips and having them off the back of my head, or out of the sewing room, it gives me such clarity in life. It was a great project. I really enjoyed quilting, and I want to make more things. Then I did a really quick project, which was again in that idea of getting stuff out of my head. I've had this idea for a top, a very plain top. I have one top in my stash that I really love, and I wanted to copy it because I had very similar fabric that came into my hands magically, not by purchasing, weirdly enough. Someone actually gave it to me. And so I just decided to sit down one day and do it. Like, it was always in the back of my head of like, oh, that's something you can do, you should do that, whatever. One Saturday morning when I had a couple of hours, I just sat down and did it. And it took like no time. It took 3 to 4 hours. I just copied out a pattern from my actual shirt, and then I made it. I had to do a lot of like piecing and some questionable decisions. I do have a little video about that because I think it shows you a little bit about how to copy stuff from your own wardrobe. So that'll be coming out soon, but I'm happy with the t-shirt that I got in the end. So yeah, there's a little hint about how well that project went when I said t-shirt instead of top, but you can watch out for that video. And then I also made some little crochet socks for my partner because he doesn't wear socks around the house, which I find insane. And it was so cold and his feet were so cold, and I was like, I just make you some socks. So I just crocheted him some socks one night. It went so quickly. I was just like, with like yarn scraps that I had in my stash, and now he has wonderful warm socks. If this video didn't make you want to try crochet, I don't know what will, because I am absolutely sold. And then my last, very, very last make of 2023 is this Cape Coat thing. It doesn't have a proper name. In my head, I always call it the Cape Coat thing. But I bought this really discounted wool in Paris early in September, and I was putting on a coat one day to leave the house, and I had these beautiful, like really nice secondhand, like fitted coats that I have, but I wanted something a little bit looser. I just felt, you know, a little bit swollen or whatever, and I just wanted something loose. I didn't want to put on a fitted coat. And then I thought, okay, great, well, I'll make one then. So I did. I found the pattern online for an 1890s inspired coat cape thing, and I've made it. It's actually not completely 100% finished because I was ill, but I'm still counting it as 2023 because the only thing it really needs is like a handful of buttons sewn on and a belt finished. So that counts. And that wraps up 2023. Thank you very much for sticking along with me. I hope you've liked going through my projects with me. I think there's a lot of pressure for people to make and make and make and make, but like we can't constantly make. There'll be months where we can't make things, and big projects take a long time, and so it's fine to work on them for 3 months and not make anything else, you know. So yeah, I feel good about 2023. Doing this video always makes me feel good about the previous year, which really affects how I go into the next year. So I need to sit down and think about what I'm going to be making in 2024. Maybe go through my stash and see what I can use up from my stash. But yeah, altogether, very happy that this year is over and wrapped up. And if you want to see more about these projects, check out the channel. Most of these projects have a video on the channel. And I think that wraps it up. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon.